Okay, hi there. Good afternoon, everyone. As publisher of the International Comparative Legal Guide to Environment and Climate Change, it is a pleasure to welcome you to this webinar led by Burges Salmon partner Simon Tilling. Now, as the EU presses ahead with its Green Deal and the UK forges its independent path prior to its COP26 presidency, our panelists will share legal perspectives from across the European continent. Now, before I hand over to Simon, I'd like to encourage the audience to ask questions throughout the discussion. So on the right of your screen, simply select the Q&A tab and your questions should be typed there. Once the webinar has finished, the platform will be open to networking, so you're free to make use of our speed networking function or reach out to your fellow delegates one-to-one using the chat and video call function. Now, on that note, I'd like to hand over to Simon, a partner at UK environmental law firm Burges Salmon. He's head of the environment practice. His practice encompasses the full breadth of environmental law, from the regulation of chemicals and products to contamination claims and regulatory appeals. Simon, over to you.
Thank you, Jake, and thank you to GL for having us along today, and thank you all for coming along. So this webinar is one that comes on the back of the publication of our ICLG Environment and Climate Change law, which I encourage you to check out online. And all of our panelists have made excellent contributions to that publication. Very interested to hear this debate. Up until recently, I was very much an environmental lawyer practicing EU environmental law. All of the work I was doing, or a lot of the work I was doing, emissions trading, industrial emissions, waste law, chemicals law, all of that, of course, comes from the from the EU. And it's a really interesting dynamic now to be somewhat on the outside of the EU's objectives and programme, commenting on what the UK is doing independent. So I'm really looking forward to for some really good perspectives, and we're really lucky today to be joined by our panel. We've got Moritz, we've got Marianne, we've got Jesus, and we've got Barbara. And we're going to go, I'll introduce prior speaking rather than doing it all in one go, if that's okay with everyone. You know who they are when they come to speak. They're going to give 10 minutes or so of commentary from their perspective, starting with Moritz setting the scene for the EU Green Deal. And then we'll have a panel debate. I'll do a little bit on the UK end of that, what we're doing here, and then we'll have a panel debate. I've got tons of questions I can ask my environmental law colleagues, and will do, but I'd really encourage you to use the Q&A function and ask your questions, because it's a great panel we've got today, lots of experience and expertise. As I say, we're going to start with Moritz, who is Deputy Head of the Department for Environmental and Planning Law at the Helmholtz Centre for Environmental Research, and head of the UFZ Research Group on International and European Environmental Law. Also the chairman of the managing board of the European Environmental Law Forum, and the managing editor of the Journal for European Environmental and Planning Law, and a member of the editorial board of the German Journal for Environmental Law, and a member of the Water Law Network. So great deal of experience, over 20 years working in this field, and I believe it's this excellent introduction to the EU Green Deal in the guide that you've called this an audacious transformation agenda. So I very much look forward to hearing your thoughts, Moritz.
Yes, I will. Well, maybe you allow me to say just a few words on the European Environmental Law Forum, which I'm actually chairing at the moment. The Environmental Law Forum is very happy to cooperate also with the Global Legal Group on this environmental comparative guide. The Environmental Law Forum is a non-commercial network of environmental lawyers, mainly European lawyers from academia, also from practice. And what we are trying to do is to really network environmental lawyers. We're providing an annual conference, and everybody who's seriously engaged in environmental law matters is kindly invited to look at our website, elf.info, and to also become a member, which is for free and opens up to you great opportunities of networking, joining the conference, and so on. So just these few commercial words for the ELF. Now, in the next 10 minutes, I will indeed provide you with a brief overview of the Green Deal and two major elements of this policy program, and that is the climate package and the envisaged green finance policies, which I think are the most, or among the most important packages of this policy program. In 10 minutes, of course, I cannot go into details and cover all these aspects comprehensively. My aim is rather to provide you with a big picture and to point to some most important approaches and challenges in legal respect. Now, we still don't see the presentation, I guess, which is a pity. But if I press the...
I'm still struggling away, Moritz, but give me a moment. If I'll persevere and see if I can do this. I think I'm struggling to retrieve your slides, Moritz, as well, for which apologies. I don't have them preloaded on my computer, and it's not loading them up.
It's not working, isn't it?
It's not working. It's not working for me
either.
Is anyone at GL able to share the slides? I don't know if Rachel or Jake in the background are able to do that. Presumably not.
Continue to
persevere. Is that Marion has proven to be the most technically competent of the panelists today?
If you go back to the cover page.
Yes, I think. But I'm not sure whether it's working or not.
Okay, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. Now, the way I proceed, I first present you just a course overview, a big picture of the content of the Green Deal, and then I proceed to these two key packages of the Green Deal. This German lady and the Dutch gentleman you see here on the cover page of my presentation are, as you know, the main protagonists of the European Green Deal. It's our President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and Vice President Franz Timmermans, who also serves as a Commissioner for Climate Protection. When they were inaugurated with the new Commission in 2019, they announced the Green Deal as the Commission's leading policy program for their coming term and far beyond this term, actually. They explained that the climate and environment crisis of the planet is the defining crisis of our time, and that the EU needs to substantially transform its economies towards climate neutrality and environmental sustainability. The European Green Deal thus announced in December 2019 a bundle of policies designed to lead the Union towards both economic prosperity and environmental sustainability. The Green Deal bundle comprises 8 sector areas and 4 cross-cutting fields of action. Would you please proceed to the second slide? Thank you. As part of the sector areas, you see here in the first place the climate and the energy packages. The main target in that regard, of course, is to step up climate ambition with a view to achieving climate neutrality in the year 2050. And to that end, transition to renewable, clean, and affordable energy sources shall be enforced. For industry, the guiding objective is resource efficiency and, in particular, circularity of the economy, meaning that material resources shall widely be recycled and waste production be avoided. For the building sector, the Commission envisages, in particular, a huge renovation wave with a view to increasing energy efficiency of buildings substantially. A further thematic block is dedicated to hazardous substances, Now, here the Commission aims at a toxic-free environment, as it says, and it envisages further interventions into production, distribution, and use of hazardous chemicals. With regard to biodiversity, the Commission aims to not only better preserve remaining stocks of nature capital, but also enforce restoration campaigns. It aims to considerably expand the area submitted to nature protection regimes. The severe sustainability gaps of the agricultural sector are addressed by a so-called farm-to-fork strategy. Here, the Commission envisages substantial green transformation of European agricultural policy. However, as the recent GAP negotiations have shown, this is quite unlikely to proceed as suggested in the Green Deal. Finally, the sector bundle also includes a green mobility strategy aimed at sustainable and smart mobility. Now, these 8 sector policy blocks are supplemented by 4 cross-cutting strategies. These cross-cutting strategies include, most notably, a comprehensive finance strategy, pledging massive spending and incentives for green investment from both public and private hands. A just transition policy to support structural transition and make sure to leave no one behind, as the Commission put it. And then inclusiveness of the transformation shall be facilitated mainly through a new climate pact, an instrument which is aimed to involve citizens and stakeholders. And last but not least, the Green Deal also includes a strategy on the external dimension of green transformation. In the global perspective, the Commission wants to place the EU as a leading driver of green development. All these policy elements were addressed in a rather superficial and sketchy manner in the initial Green Deal communication. However, this communication included also a roadmap announcing further steps and the development of specific strategies on all these policy fields. For most of them, the Commission has indeed published such strategies over the last year, and in some of them, it has also introduced first legislative proposals. I will now use a few more minutes to look just a little closer at the 2 elements of the Green Deal which appear particularly important, and that is the climate and energy package and the finance part. The climate package of the Green Deal refers to basically all major instruments of European climate policy. The Commission has published, in the meantime, a more detailed strategy in September 2020 on these Green Deal climate policies. Now, in the first place, the Commission announced that the overall greenhouse gas mitigation targets should be lifted to 55% by 2030 and to net climate neutrality by 2050. In the meantime, these more ambitious targets were also endorsed by the European Council. I guess that was in December last year. The Commission also proposed a so-called climate law, a regulation, including binding mitigation targets for the 2030 and 2050 horizon, and also an obligation on both national and EU level to devise implementation path, adopt programs of measures, deliver progress reports, and revise policy as needed if progress deviates from implementation trajectories. The climate law amends and supplements the existing governance regulation 2018-1999, which already obliges member states to adopt, report, and review national climate plans and long-term strategies. The climate law proposal is currently negotiated in the so-called trilogy dialogue between Commission, Council, and the Parliament. Moreover, the Commission pledged to strengthen the EU's emission trading system, the ETS system, by heightening the annual reduction of the overall emission cap to 2.2%, and also by possibly extending the system to buildings and to transport including navigation and international aviation. The ETS system shall also be backed by a carbon border adjustment mechanism to ensure that higher carbon prices will not lead to migration of carbon-intense industries and market distortion to the disadvantage of the European businesses. At the moment, the Commission is still evaluating different options, including a carbon tax, customs duties, or even an extension of the ETS to imports. Legislative proposal is expected this summer. The last point I want to mention here is a strengthening of the regulation on the carbon balance on land use change, and forestry. Currently, this law is obliging member states to maintain their current level of carbon sinks. And with an amended regulation, the Commission now aims to go beyond this no net loss obligation. Now let us proceed to the sustainable spending and finance package. Please proceed to the next slide. Yes, thank you. Let me just say a few words on the finance package, which is very likely to become equally, if not even more important than the regulatory parts to the Green Deal policy. Part of the Green Deal, as a part of the Green Deal, the Commission has drafted a so-called European Green Deal investment plan in order to mobilize around 1 trillion euro for sustainable investment in the coming decade, from 2020 to 2030. This investment plan includes an extensive enabling framework for green investment, building on the diverse facilitators of the so-called InvestEU program, which includes the investment bank and its various funds, guarantees, and loans. So all these loans will be geared within the 1 billion package to sustainable investment. And in addition to these investment plans and instruments, the finance package of the Green Deal also pledges to revise the state aid guidelines and in order to foster green economy, and to provide mandatory minimum criteria for green public procurement. So also gear state aid and public procurement further to sustainable development. In addition, now we have the tremendous budget of the Next Generation EU Funds, the Recovery and Resilience Facility for recovery from the COVID-19 crisis. This fund includes nearly 2 trillion euro, including the multi-annual financial framework of the EU. And it pledges to invest 30% or to direct 30% of this money to support climate objectives and green investment. And moreover, the national recovery plans are obliged, or the member states are obliged to observe their climate plans and sustainability criteria in order to be eligible to receive funds from the Next Generation facility. Now, all these financial instruments raise the question, what is actually sustainable investment? And the answer, or at least a vague and preliminary answer to this, is provided by the so-called taxonomy regulation of 2020, where the European Union has laid down sustainability investment criteria. So this will be a decisive regulation for directing these tremendous funds into sustainable investment. Let me conclude. What will be the main impacts and challenges, especially also in legal terms, if the Commission actually succeeds in implementing the Green Deal? These 3 points here I would like to make. First, it is clear that we will see a surge of further regulation and tighter standards across sectors with focus to greenhouse gas reduction and resource efficiency. About all this, you will hear more in the future and the further contributions of this workshop, I suppose. Secondly, there will be a strong shove towards sustainable investment, as I just explained, and towards environmental compliance. This certainly implies a lot of legal challenges and work to do on all levels, down from the Commission to every in-house consultant. And thirdly, I assume that we will also see a significant policy shift against EU externalities of trade and production chains. Because the more the EU advances towards environmental sustainability and carbon neutrality, the steeper the slope will get towards countries with less ambitious targets. And the more the EU will need to do to prevent harmful activities to migrate to other regions in the world. This, do I suppose and submit, will come as a challenge for legal experts and deciders across the board. Thank you very much for your attention.
Moritz, thank you very much. That was I'm getting an excellent overview of the Green Deal. Thank you. Now we're going to have a look at some of the specific aspects of the Green Deal and also have perspectives on particular challenges in various jurisdictions. So I'm going to go first to one of the founding partners of the law firm, Urban Stacker Gashberek Bushansky. I hope I've got the pronunciation right, Marian. Please correct me when you open. And you're responsible for the practice area of environmental law and in particular waste management law as part of a wider practice that also provides legal advice to companies and other businesses on corporate structures, relationships and rules of management, executive and supervisory bodies, governance, cross-border structuring, holding groups, and of course mergers and acquisitions, and has many years of experience practicing law across several major firms, Slovakia and in the Czech Republic. So again, lots of experience to bring. Marian, please, let us have your presentation.
Hi, thank you, Simon. It's a pleasure to be here today with you guys. I will explain some issues without any presentation, just to address the relevant topics from my point of view. We can call it USGB law firm. It's much easier for us. So I'll start with my part. Thank you, Moritz. As you explained, the Green Deal from our point of view for sustainable growth. Understand that it requires a full mobilization of industry for reaching a climatically neutral and mostly circular economy. From my experience, dealing with circular economy will be one of the main problem because of the waste management, the high cost for industry to implement. So, pursuant to EU Green Deal, a transformation of the industry, including all value chains, takes approximately 25 years. Therefore, with an outlook to the year 2020, it is necessary to adopt decisions and measures already in the years. As I speak earlier, one of the main pillars of the European Green Deal is a new action plan for circular economy. This plan for circular economy contains measures for the preparation of the economy to ecological future and an increase in competitiveness in ensuring protection of the environment and the new rights of consumers. In Slovakia, for example, the implementation process already started, and the Slovak government established Council of the Government of the Slovak Republic for the European Green Deal. The Slovak Minister of Environment has proposed to establish as coordinating and counseling body of the government. All ministries, representatives of the industry, manufacturers, employees, as well as non-governmental organizations will be part of this council. Such entity could therefore in this way actively present their positions, recommendations and opinions how to reach strategic targets of the European Green Deal. But from my perspective, the first crucial issue is how to achieve a climatically neutral economy, is to build, or let's say transfer our economy to circular economy. This has to be made from our point of view by the project of centers of the circular economy as key factors for targets of the circular economy. Several projects have been introduced in Slovakia lately with the aim to become centers of the circular economy. We understand that it's necessary for them to ensure mostly systematic compliance with the hierarchy of waste management. We in particular see to limit waste disposal and energetic processing in favor or recycling and reuse. The second one point that needs to be ensured is determination of higher targets in the sector of recycling and preparation for reuse. The reuse is the most crucial way in the whole circular economy package that we understand needs to be achieved. Is utilization of modern technological procedures, of the separation and treatment of waste compliance with the highest European standards, using innovating combinations of separators and detection equipment for the separation of individual elements of waste material that can be used as a new material for industry. Also, it is necessary to increase from our experience level of recycling, also for highly treatable plastic waste, microplastic materials, and so forth. Reaching a higher level of efficient utilization of sources and active utilization of secondary raw material needs to be also considered as one of the crucial points for centers of circular economy. We understand that it's necessary to build those centers with also reuse centers as part of which there is collection of waste material, it's checking and identification, separation of the waste material into components, repair and possible exchange components, reassembly and quality and tasting control. Within the framework of our activities, we seek to find inspirations in modern operations abroad, mainly in Holland, Netherlands, and Germany, with the understanding that the individual technological procedures, the implementation of which is being considered, are subsequently the subject of mutual discussion with submitters in Slovakia. In this manner, we seek to shift projects in Slovakia into level of centers that could really be circular economy, not only the classic waste management facilities. The second most important issue which we see is from our perspective to identify to bring a new legislation for the sector of for the eco design of products. We understand that the new action plan for circular economy is aimed at the design of products and their production in the context of a circular economy. Legal regulations of the European Union already address to a certain level aspects of the sustainability of the products, for example, the directive of establishing a framework for the setting of eco-design requirements for energy-related products. However, further to the targets determined in the European Green Deal, it is necessary that legislation in the sector of sustainable product policy will be applied to the widest spectrum of the products and that it will contribute realistically to achievement of circularity. Hence, the new legislation in the sector of eco-design should have a wider coverage and should observe so-called principles of sustainability. We understand that in this manner, significant changes should occur in the safety system of already implemented extended producer's liability. For example, in Slovakia, in 2020, was adopted a new legislative in the sector of eco-modulation, regulate that clearing centers for producers must set up price lists based on the durability, repairability, reuse, recycling ability of specific products, and after consideration of the presence of dangerous substances in specific products. A specific manner of the performance of such obligations and considerations of the set criteria should be subject of a generally binding law regulation. However, such regulation has not been approved due to the absence of harmonized regulation at the level of the EU. In general, we understand as main eco-modulation principles that should be deemed the fees for individual products are to be differentiated and should reflect recycling ability and realistic cost for the collection and processing of the given material. There should be the occurrence of a product with content of recycled materials, a higher fee in case of products with no information about recycling ability of material, and a higher fee in case of material with high dangerous content. An ideal method for market of products would be a common all-European solution established on strict requirements to shift cost into the price. A correct determination of eco-modulation should lead to a higher level of possibility to sort out waste material and subsequently to a higher level of recycling and hence also to the performance of targets stipulated in European Green Deal. We also consider as a necessity to add legislation in the sector of waste from batteries, especially the new lithium-ion car batteries. To reach targets of the European Green Deal, a new regulatory framework that increases a circular potential of batteries is necessary. Batteries introduced on the market of the EU should be sustainable, highly efficient, and safe during their entire life. Initiatives should take place in the sector of batteries, leading to the occurrence of alliances and the vast connection of source in the form of important projects, as part of which there will be support for the building of new innovative value chains. Further to the European Green Deal, the European Green Commission introduced in December 2020 a draft of a new legislation in the sector of batteries, which will replace the current one and bring new harmonization to this field. The current legal framework, which implemented the directive on batteries, applies only to the last stage of the lifetime. Currently, no legal provisions exist in EU which would pertain to further aspects of manufacturing stages and use of such batteries, such as electrochemical performance and durability, emissions of greenhouse gases, or accountable obtaining of raw material. The new legislation is supposed to address three groups of issues: non-harmonized regulatory framework of the internal market. It is necessary to stimulate investment into capacity of the manufacture of sustainable, non-optimal operation of recycling market, and insufficiently closed cycles of flow of material. Social and environmental risk, that issue of insufficient transparency in the context of obtaining raw material, dangerous substances, and so forth. Further, the targets of the European Green Deal, including the decarbonization of transportation and energetic system, it's possible to forecast in the following period a growth of demand for batteries. Hence, the batteries market will become, from global perspective, more strategic. Together with the growing significance of batteries market, we understand that there is also a growth in the need for efficient legislation. So these, I think, are the most important issues which we want to address for further discussion, and that's all from my part.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Marianne. That was really a deep dive into some of those circular deals that really are need to be grappled with to deliver the green deal. Us now to our colleagues from Urea Menendez. We've got Hayes and we've got Barbara, both with us today, both on the same screen there. So I think Hayes' login is there on your screens, but we've also got Barbara. Just a quick introduction. Jesus is in the Madrid office, joined the firm back in September 2006, and a member of the public and environmental law practice, advising public and private entities on all aspects of public and regulatory law, including, of course, environmental law, covering climate change, pollution prevention and control, natural resources, wastewater, mines and coasts, and regularly appears before Spain's contentious administrative courts and the Constitutional Court, and regular participant in civil proceedings relating to regulatory and environmental matters. And Barbara joined in 2013, and again as a member of the public law and environment and sustainable practice areas. And during 2017 worked for the energy, mining and natural resources team at PPU's office in Santiago, Chile, which must have been very interesting. And again, advising on public and private entities on a wide range of topics, judicial proceedings, sanctioning procedures, processing authorizations and permits, specialist support in commercial transactions, legal analysis, with extensive knowledge, of course, of environmental law, covering climate change, integrated pollution prevention and control, natural resources, waste, soil, water, air quality, the full breadth of environment. Both very significant practices in environmental law, and we look forward to hearing your perspectives from Spain. Over to you.
Yes, well, good afternoon. Thank you, Simon, for your kind presentation, and thank you also to GLG for this opportunity to participate in this interesting meeting. I think that I would say that in Spain, or at least most of our clients, seeing the Green Deal as a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity, which is even more important after this terrific year of pandemic. And I would say that indeed this is one of the hottest topics in Spain. I would say that together with the football Super League that has been promoted by several football clubs, together with that is one of the hottest topics in Spain. And they see this Green Deal as an opportunity, but also, well, especially those clients which are in a best position within the green economy sector. But there is also some kind of fears and legal uncertainty about certain specific measures to be taken. The reality shows us that our legal systems are not adapted to the ambitious goals included in the Green Deal. Some of the measures and some of relevant investments must be carried out now, today, if we want to comply with, want to achieve the targets, and if we want that our companies has a good position in the market. And we have not, in certain specific areas, we have not clear rules, clear regulations as to whether this is the investments and the industrial process which are behind that investments are allowed or not. So this is something that we are facing every day, and we are trying to also negotiate with the authorities some sort of interpretation of the existing rules in accordance with the goals of the European rules and of the Green Deal. But this is not easy at all, because public officers normally want to sign only those resolutions which we are comfortable with, and this is not the case in some authorizations, in some subsidies, and in some policies which are absolutely aligned with the goals of the Green Deal, but that they have not clear support in the existing regulations, at least in Spain. So there will be a lot of topics to discuss with you, and we are open, of course, to discuss about whatever you may want. We have identified 3 specific projects or specific regulations that would be of some kind of importance and relevance, and we are going through them very briefly. The first one is the National Integrated Plan on Energy and Climate, which is not directly, it's linked, of course, with the Green Deal, but derives from the existing regulations, European regulations. It was approved last March by last March, very recently, and it includes some relevant targets or objectives to be achieved by 2030. It includes only a huge amount of planned investment, which may be assumed by private sector, most of them by private sector. And it includes, as I said, relevant target to be achieved, specifically in relation to electric power generation, which by 2030, the 74 of electric generation should come from clean energies, and also an implementation, introduction of clean energy in all the Spanish economy by 42% over the total final energy use. So these are very ambitious objectives, which are subject to review if the government decides so. For example, the target to reduce greenhouse gases emissions could be reviewed, considering that the Green Deal is to be more ambitious than the plan is now. We have also some of the main measures included in the plan. As you may know, it includes, I would say that more or less 100 of measures, but we have detailed the main ones. These measures can also be completed by the regional authorities and also by the local authorities. As you may know, in Spain, the powers on environmental issues are distributed between the central government, the national government, the regional authorities, which have indeed a very relevant role in relation to environmental matters, and also the local authorities have some competence. So there are some relevant measures I will probably emphasize because I'll see it later. Well, the use of advanced biofuels in transport, for example, which is something, at least in Spain, we have not a clear regulation in this regard. It is not clear whether some biofuels can be produced from certain type of waste. Huge investment are necessary to produce this type of biofuels, and oil companies have not certain about how or whether they can use or not this type of waste as a raw material. And this is something that we are fighting with. And there are also other measures that in part has been already mentioned, for example, public procurement measures, local participation in clean energy generation, as it has been noticed that local communities probably are suffering the disadvantages of certain type of clean energies, but they are not receiving the benefits. And well, some measures have been adopted in order to create a joint community to allow these local communities to be to take advantage of this type of energy generation. In relation to energy efficiency, we have the plan has included some relevant measures. Most of the Spanish cities will approve low emission zones, just to reduce as far as possible the use of private vehicles, which is something that is a main goal of this government. Related to this, it is planned the renewal of the stock of cars, because in Spain we have a very old stock of cars, and this is something that impacts directly in our objectives. Well, some subsidies and specific programs to cleaner technologies and specifically to electric car has been approved. This also envisages to implement energy and energy efficiency within the several industrial processes, which is not easy, but there are so many programs in this regard. And also, the plan in relation to that is the energy efficiency in buildings, especially aids or subsidies for existing buildings and new obligations for the applicable to the new constructions. The plan also includes other measures related to energy security, some strategy policies and internal market, but I think that I have summarized the main points. And the second project or the second regulation that we want to emphasize is the new law on waste and polluted soils. It is aimed at implementing the directive of 2018 that modifies the directive on waste, and also to implement the directive on plastic. But in relation to specifically the circular economy that I share totally with Marian, that this is one of the key issues or one of the key questions to address in relation to the Green Deal and in relation to the economic transition in general. In relation to circular economy, this new law tries to improve and introduce some, well, clarify as far as possible the concepts of end of waste criteria and byproduct. These two concepts were included in the directive of 2008 to improve and to develop precisely the economy, the circular economy and the reuse of waste. But at least in Spain, we have our experience is that none of these two concepts work, none of that. The competence on the establishment of the end of waste criteria and the consideration of a material of a product as a byproduct, this competence is legally attributed to the central government that has to approve specific regulations. But the reality is that we have I think that 4 or at least 5 end of waste criteria, or criteria related to 4 or 5 materials, no more, and a very low number of byproducts recognized as such. So this is linked to what I mentioned about biofuels. Can I use a waste to produce biofuels? Can I use sandage material to produce biofuels? If I produce biofuels from these materials, the final product is a product. It's not a product because we have no end of waste criteria. We need a new end of waste criteria, or it is enough with the traditional concepts or valorization or recycling. Well, we have our opinion. Our clients and the in-house lawyers of the clients has their own opinion, and this is something which is well, not the best scenario to face huge investments, for example, in implementing a new biofuel refinery, or to change the production process of an existing traditional refinery. And in addition to that, this law also introduce objectives and measures to reduce the use of single-use plastics, and also ambitious targets to separate and manage and in case reduce the hazardous household waste and the municipal waste. And Barbara, if you want, I think you can continue with.
All right. In this case, I'm going to talk about the third point that we are going to talk about, that is the new law on energy transition and climate change. As Jesus stated, Spain is committed to achieve ambitious climate goals for 2030 and then for 2050. To this end, the Spanish Congress has just approved a bill on climate change and energy transition. This bill has passed to the Senate for completing its approval procedure, and it is expected to enter into force next May. The bill tries to tackle climate change from a general standpoint, kind of a roadmap, leaving the details to other instruments such as the National Integrated Plan on Energy and Climate described by Jesus before. As a result, most of the measures mentioned in the bill require further development to be implemented. Nonetheless, the bill does include some measures with direct effects. Indeed, some of them are pretty relevant. For instance, in relation to mobility, the bill stipulates that new vehicles, in particular passenger cars and light commercial vehicles, would need to be zero emission before 2040. Moreover, according to the bill, owners of gas stations will have to install electric charging points. The same will apply to owners of buildings with more than 20 parking spots, for instance, offices or commercial centers. Private resident buildings are by now exempted from this obligation. Secondly, regarding the use of natural resources, the bill makes the decision to forbid of any permit aimed at the exploration, investigation, or exploitation of hydrocarbons in Spain, including the territorial sea and the exclusive economic zone. Fracking is also expressly forbidden in this bill. In the case of radioactive minerals, for instance, uranium, the bill stipulates the rejection of any new application for exploring, investigating, or exploiting such minerals. Furthermore, to foster sustainable investment, the bill establishes that companies will have to include in their annual management report, which is comprised with accounts and assessments of risks associated to climate change and the measures implemented against it. In addition, banks and institutions and credit institutions will have to publish specific objectives for the decarbonization of investment portfolio. Finally, in relation to public authorities, The bill provides that they will cease to own any company shares or financial instrument on companies whose economic activity is related to the extraction and processing of fossil fuels. Also, public authorities will need to leave any rented building which is now nearly zero energy consumption by 2030. In the case of new works and constructions, public procurement proceedings will have to include environmental awarding criteria, such as the scoring of the level of energy efficiency, the use of sustainable materials, or the minimization of waste production. Lastly, according to this bill, the Spanish national budget must allocate certain minimum percentage of the resources to climate change issues. Also, all income arising from EU emission trading schemes of greenhouse gases will have to be used for achieving climate change objectives. On the other hand, we would like to mention some of the most relevant general measures announced in the bill, but that still require further development. These are the implementation of a green tax reform, the approval of a fair transition strategy aimed at tackling social impacts derived from the energy transition, the approval of a rehabilitation and renovation plan for residential buildings. In relation to this, it worth mentioning that the bill especially mentioned the government's intention to ease the requirements for the installation of photovoltaic panels in residential buildings for self-consumption. In addition, all zoning and urban planning resolutions will have to consider climate change implications. The same will apply to management plans of environmentally protected areas. In this case, if the plans have already been approved, they will need to be updated in this regard. Finally, the bill announces the adjustment of the education system at a primary, secondary, and university level to include climate change issues within the academic program.
Yes, well, as you may assume, we have clients which are very happy with this new law, but we have also clients which are not happy at all with it. Well, we have to do it with both of them, because I think that the succeed of this law would occur if all the sector are involved and all the sector feel more or less comfortable. And I think that this is all from our side. Barbara, I don't know if you...
Yeah, I don't know if there's any question.
That's great, Jesus and Barbara. Thank you so much for that perspective. I think one of the main things I've learned is that 1 hour is simply not anywhere near long enough to cover all of these excellent items on the agenda. Conscious we were only listed for an hour and to be starting to drop off, and I know that people will have places to go. I did have a presentation on the UK side of things, but I think I can summarize it relatively quickly for everybody here, in fact, because we have all of the same problems, all of the same issues. We've had 40 years of EU environmental law. So our definition of waste and when is something end of waste for the circular economy, we're grappling with that too. We're grappling with how to the private sector investment into the rapid transitional change that we need to see. So we are also looking at a green finance strategy. So all of these issues are very much the same in the UK. There is an interesting point which I'd be very interested to just test the audience, if you'll indulge me with a couple more minutes. We have a poll, which is who will reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions first? Will it be the European Union or will it be the United Kingdom? And I understand all participants can vote on this. So do please answer that question. And I'd be very interested to know where we come out. I'll come back to that in just a moment. But the UK, of course, is independent. It can set its own agenda. It can set its own targets. The politics is very much the same. We've got a legally binding commitment to reach net zero by 2050 in our amended Climate Change Act of 2008, amended 2019. So we are very much on the same trajectory. The question, I think, which will be interesting, I'll be interested to see the results of the polls, is does an independent UK have more flexibility to get there quicker, or will the rigor of a common market and the EU setting the agenda, bringing along member states, achieve that result? And actually, just looking at that poll, we are neck and neck. 11 votes for the European Union, 11 votes for the United Kingdom from those who have voted online. So a very interesting straw poll of where we might end up. Now, I am conscious of time. I won't indulge you for much longer, but I will just, for those that can hang on, ask the panel two very good questions that have been raised by our audience. First up, the EU Green Deal referred to the need to leave no one behind, and that's very much in the UK. This levelling up agenda, which we have in the UK too, very much a focus of our green aspirations. Can you shed any light on this in the context of trying to reduce environmental emissions and other environmental problems? And I'll ask for one or two lines and no more because of time. Any reflections on how much of a challenge is leave no one behind to actually deliver? And I'm going to start first with Moritz.
Well, thank you, Salmon. Maybe I start with the leave no one behind objective. As far as I see it, it's more or less part of the investment package of the EU. It's dedicating 100 billion euro to the, let's say, extra money to the structural funds, and offers opportunities to provide structural aid to those branches and regions that are most negatively affected by the transition to climate neutrality and so on. About the precise allocation of that money, I think not so much is known so far. We have to see, how the mechanisms work and how if you look now in the new legislative proposals, there's a lot of allocation criteria, and we have to look precisely at how this is going to be applied and work on the ground. So I think we cannot say too much about that so far.
No. Marian, do you have anything to add to that?
I think Morris summarized it fine, but it's so leave no one behind. So I personally will be happy to see what will going on with this.
Indeed, absolutely. And the view from Spain, Jesus and Barbara. Jesus, Barbara, any thoughts on that one?
Oh, sorry.
Can you hear?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear
Yeah,
us?
we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yes.
Jesus was answering.
Yes, sorry. Well, in relation, of course, this is a global problem which it cannot be solved exclusively by the European Union. This is clear for all of us. And in relation to the second question and the lead line, there are some, at the Commission level and also at the Spanish government level, there are some initiatives for the so-called fair transition in order to try to help those sectors which are more affected by all these type of regulations by way of or by means of subsidies, education, and some other policies to integrate the sectors in this economic transition, because someone says that if this transition is not fair, it would not be.
Mm. Yes, and there's a clarification, which is, what does it mean? Is it nations? Is it individuals? And just to supplement and build upon everything that's been said, this is a massive transition to the economy. This is nowhere near the status quo. It's a huge amount of change. Any change in any economy has winners and losers. And I think the whole point of this leave no one behind, and certainly in the UK, what we call a levelling up agenda, is to make sure we don't repeat the mistakes of the past, where actually sometimes the poorest members of society have suffered the most from significant economic change. So that would be my reflection. But how do you do that is a real challenge, and I think we need to see the detail on that. And yes, so thank you. Just on that second question, I'm very conscious of the time, so I will wrap it up. Does the EU Green Deal imply that the EU can solve collective action problems such as climate change by itself? There's a real interesting, as environmental lawyers on this call, I'm sure we all have a view on that. Obviously, climate change is a global problem, but what is the mechanism at a global level for solving it? Well, we've got COP26 later this year. Let's see what comes out of that. But individually, jurisdictions and markets and the EU and member states, and indeed right down to cities and municipalities and everybody else, presumably all need to play their role, and all really, if we're going to achieve this significant change, step up to the plate and deliver what they can within their own control. So yes, having the EU Green Deal does suggest it's an EU focused initiative, but at the same time, I don't think, my view would be, and certainly from the UK perspective and in the build up to COP26, I don't think we've lost sight of the fact that this is very much a global effort. So as one final comment from all our panelists, any reflection on that, Moritz? Oh, just switch yourself on mute.
Okay. Yes, as I mentioned in my intervention at the end, I think a major part of the global challenge is to avoid externalities from the European process, because the more we move ahead with our, let's say, climate and sustainability, the more the tendency we will observe the tendency to externalize carbon emissions and so on. And there, of course, now part of the Green Deal package, there are a number of instruments or policies trying to avoid this. But as we can take, for instance, from the recent WWF report on deforestation in Brazil and other countries, we see that the EU is a major causer of such deforestation, because now it's importing biofuel products and so on. And this is certainly not a good way to achieve sustainability criteria requirements at home if you then export these problems to other countries. So this is also part of the answer to this question. Of course, the EU needs to commit in the global process too, and it also needs to find mechanisms to avoid such externalities.
Yes, and now in the UK, our Committee on Climate Change published a really interesting graph which shows that the UK's domestic emissions have come down, not fast enough, it needs to come down further, obviously, to achieve net zero, but the graph shows it going down. But our consumption emissions, that's how much as people in the UK we are emitting when we look at what we consume and where it is entirely flat. So it's just an exportation of that, and that's a real issue to be grappled with. Jake's coming online to tell me I've indulged everybody too long, and we are now heading for 15 minutes over. So I'm going to bring this very much to a close. Thank you all very much for joining us. Thank the panelists for an excellent debate, and hopefully we can do it again and have another really good debate as this major transition unfolds. So thank you all very much for your time, and hope to see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.